Hi, I'm Janine McGuire.
And I'm Arri Lawton Simon.
Together we're McGuire
McGuire and
and
Simon.
Simon. It is our third Thursday for October 2022. And we're coming to you from different places right now. I am in New York, as usual.
And I am in Ogallala, Nebraska,
I
which is
actually
just,
didn't even know where you actually were until you said that. I knew you're in
yeah,
Mountain Time, but that's all I knew.
I am in Mountain Time because we're so far west in Nebraska that it's in Mountain Time. And it's just it's a really fun thing. Just Ogallala, Ogallala. It's like an old Western cowboy town. So
Yeah.
um,
And what are you doing there?
I am on a concert tour of the Midwest with Jeremy Stolle and Elizabeth Welch, both members of the cast of Phantom on Broadway. And we are a Broadway band. We do like uh, pop or jazz or like new covers of old Broadway classics and then do some standards as well. There's a Phantom set in the show, but 12 cities in 16 days. It's like between 4,000 and 5,000 miles of driving. So it's been it's a good thing that we love each other and actually all travel really well together. Because being friends does not mean that you can travel well together, but we do.
As we know. No, I mean you and I travel well together. I'm glad you
Yes.
and they also travel well together. That's good. Your all your social media has looked really fun.
Well, and you know what the we said that a saving grace is actually because one of the things that can make it so stressful is meal times, and all three of us are fine with eating Mexican 3 times a day. And you can always find like decent Mexican, except for the one place that was actually the worst food we've ever had. And then on the other hand, there was one that was like some of the best we'd ever had. So it's been fun touring the Mexican restaurants of the Midwest.
Well, actually, and the tour that you're on right now is connected to the topic that we're talking about on today's third Thursday. As you mentioned, both Jeremy and Elizabeth are members of the cast of the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. And
Yes.
today we thought we would dedicate our third Thursday episode to, honestly, some sad news that came out last month. In September, we all collectively found out that Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, the brilliant original production, would be closing in February 2023 after 35
After
beautiful years,
35, yes, or
which is
as
amazing. Which is
yeah,
what
as
most
Elizabeth
of our
says,
ages, so,
right, as Elizabeth says in the show every night before she sings one of her selections, 35 glorious years on Broadway, and I
yeah.
think there's really just like there's there's nothing to be said but glory to something that has survived 35 years in this industry. It's quite a feat.
Absolutely. So I mean, yeah. So yeah, it's of course sad. It's sad for me and for you and for all of our community. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge Andrew Lloyd Webber fan. I'm a huge Phantom fan since I was young. So it's sad, but it is also a celebration of this amazing, world changing, industry changing show. And honestly, it is my personal prediction that like it won't be the last that we see of it, but in New York and certainly around the world where there's still many more productions playing. But yeah, we will miss it. I went through my own personal grief period when I heard the news. I was really shocked, and then I immediately bought tickets to see it with some of my out of town friends. But we'll tell you about some of our experiences seeing the show. But going all the way back to even when you and I met.
Yeah.
I remember like talking to you about Phantom really early, and that was great. Even before we, I think, agreed to work together, we were just like
Hmm.
trading, aesthetic ideals and seeing what we're each of us were into.
I can always I am like I know I can trust somebody who believes in Phantom. Like I was like that's key.
And actually, I don't actually know this about you. When do you remember when you first saw it on Broadway? And did you see the Broadway production first, or did you see any other
No, I
production?
saw a tour first.
Mhm.
So I it was the very first CD I bought with my own money. Um and I had the original 2 disc London cast recording, and I was 6 years old when I bought it, and it's because my friend Tyler had told me about it, and I was like, oh, this is very cool. And so I got into it then, and then I didn't see it until 10 years later when I was 16, actually on a trip. Some friends brought me out just for a vacation with them, and we saw a tour in Salt Lake City. So it was the first time that I ever saw the show. And then the first time on Broadway was the 25th anniversary production.
Oh,
So
amazing! That's awesome. And so, do you remember who was in it then? Was it
Norman Sierra.
Norman Sarah? Oh, so good. I also saw them. They were amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Oh, awesome! I love that. Oh no, and awesome. Yeah, when you were talking about that, it brought me back to my earliest childhood moments was with my sister Lindsay. The show really bonded us. We were both obsessed with it. We took our fandom in different directions. For me, it led to learning more about writing musicals and being on the composition and creative side. And for her, she went down the whole road of eventually majoring in French and reading the book in French and everything. And she was also very into the design, Maria Bjornsson's beautiful costume and scenic design. And we both had like the specific things about it that we were really obsessed with. But hearing you talk about Tyler reminded me of that bond that Lindsay and I also had over the show.
Yeah, it's funny because we both loved it so much, and I mean, bonded over it and had arguments over it too. Like in it was either second or third grade, we both went as the Phantom for Halloween, and like we're both sure that we had the idea first, and the other one had stolen it. So
no, that's awesome. Yeah. I want to see those pictures.
No, I have one somewhere. Next time I'm in Wichita, I'll dig it up. It's pretty good.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Yeah. And then so of course I got to see the show with my family on Broadway through the 90s a few different times. I saw a lot of great different Phantoms. It was just a wonderful early theater experience for me. And then I went back and I looked at my Broadway spreadsheet, and I have now seen the show 13 times. That is my number. I mean, that's not like a crazy number when you compare it to fans who've seen it like hundreds of times. But right. For me, I think it's more than any other. It's more than any other production that I did not work on personally. So it is, I guess, my like number one show in a lot of ways. And of course, I had a lot of years to do that over.
Accumulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually.
Oh yeah. No, go ahead.
I was saying, no, it's also mine. And I think part of that is just its sheer longevity because we've had opportunities to see it, like you said. But yeah, I've seen it 6 times total so far. Yeah. So live, it's just I'm lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for me, all of those times were on Broadway, except for I did see the Vegas production, which was awesome and really cool. And I saw the West End production for the first time this past summer, which was amazing, starring actually as Carlotta, one of your college friends. Kelly Gliptis.
Kelly Gliptis.
She was amazing. She was in her first week performing, and whoa, what a wonder.
Yeah, I haven't found any bootlegs at all. But yeah, as soon as I found out that she booked that, I was like, yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've gotten to see the show a lot of times. We'll still be going back more times, I think.
Yes.
More times in our future, especially now that you're friends and collaborators with cast members from the show, which is awesome.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, I'm part of the Phantom family, spelled with PHs, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually, I'm thinking back over some other favorite memories of seeing the show. One of them was, of course, going backstage with Jeremy a couple of times and getting to go to stand on the stage with the chandelier and all that fun stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I went for my birthday one year and took my best friend Tyler to see it as well. And Jeremy's the best. He gives the best backstage tour. I learned so much cool trivia in like 10 minutes. It was awesome.
Yeah. It is really cool. And also you and I each had the pleasure and honor of being there on the reopening night, which was almost exactly this time last year. It was October 22nd, 2021. And that night was crazy. It was incredible. It was.
I'd never been to an opening. I know you've been to a couple openings on Broadway, but that was my first opening night of a show and a reopening. But whoa, was it a party? I mean, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber was spinning like on a truck, like spinning remixes of the show out right on the street.
After the show, before the show, there were some lovely goodies left at our seats, and Andrew Lloyd Webber and Cameron Mackintosh gave a pre-curtain speech, and the show was amazing. And then after we walk out onto 44th Street, and surprise,
right?
It was amazing. And this DJ
bags, a rose,
so cool.
It was very special, and the energy. I mean, it was so electric. I feel like it had to have been at the same level, if not higher, than like the original opening, because it just, people were so excited and grateful to be there. And it was wild. I'm very fortunate to have been able to attend that.
I cried as soon as on the overture when the chandelier goes up. I just bawling. And now I think about that a little bit every time I see the show or think about the overture, and I think about that feeling because it represented so much. It wasn't only this show coming back, but it felt like to me all of Broadway resurrecting from this difficult lockdown period, and just so I don't know. It brings me like a new joy now, even thinking about it. Oh, and also that reminded me, one of the things that they gave us on the way out the door, I did look in my fridge to see if I still had it, and I do. They gave us these cookies. And do you still have yours by any chance?
I do. Actually, it's in New York, but it's in, I have this beautiful bowl of things that I love, like on my kitchen counter, and it's there in the wrapping.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if I had it, and honestly how it was holding up, because I kind of regret not putting it in the freezer. I just put it in the fridge, and I'm not sure if it's edible still. I don't even know. I mean, it looks like it's made out of like sugary things. I don't know if I do want to eat it or not, but I just want to
at this point, it can just be a souvenir that
I wanted to see what you thought, because I think you would have my best interests in mind.
Yeah, don't eat that.
Okay.
I most certainly will not be eating mine. It's been sitting out for a year, but yeah, it's fun to have.
Yeah. And anyway, I mean, I'm sure each of us individually and hopefully together will be going back to see the show a couple more times. And we hope that you do too, if you're in the New York area. And we also just wanted to talk a little bit about specifically what we love about it, because, we could just go on and on about our nostalgic experiences, but also if you do want to revisit it yourself or visit it for the first time, if you've never seen the show before, we want to tell you some of from our brains today, our adult musical theater writing brains, just some of the things that we really enjoy about it. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Now I could talk forever, so I'm going to try to keep this brief. I was thinking about this a little bit, and I think I can. I think I'll limit this to just like 3 overarching things that I think are really wonderful about this, the show and this production. The first one is, I think that it is a rare thing where all the elements of a production come together in service of one vision so strongly and so clearly. And I think so much of that credit goes to Hal Prince, the director of the original production. But to me, it's like, it's the score. Of course, it's what I love about it, but also the way that the score works with the scenic design by Maria Bjornson, the choreography by Gillian Lynn. Hal Prince is just gorgeous. And in some ways, honestly, I feel quite understated direction for something that is such a huge, spectacular musical. I just think all of that comes together in such a way that, again, it doesn't happen that often. And when it does, I think it's wonderful. Let's see. Additionally, I feel like the actual structure and composition of the show, there are a lot of surprises inside. I sometimes look at it and I'm like, wow, this has been around for 35 years. So we all take it for granted that this is, how the authors choose to tell this story. But in fact, I feel like there are so many, gutsy and honestly unusual choices in the way that a writer that Andrew Lloyd Webber, Richard Stilgoe, and Charles Hart chose to put this whole thing together. And I mean, starting with just a cold open in the auction, and leading into what Arri and I actually sometimes refer to as the forced overture of an overture that doesn't come at the very, very top. It's something that comes just a few minutes in, where like the audience is already engaged and they're in their seats and they're paying attention to the whole thing. Everything to how the Phantom and Christine are introduced, what gets musicalized when, just so many different things that I think are just actually quite unique and just interesting about it. So just if you're happen to be in our musical theater writing circle, or just a musical lover who likes to deconstruct and think about how things are put together and other ways that they could in theory be put together that would contrast the choices that were made, I think it's just really interesting to think about how the story is told on stage. And the third thing was something that actually struck me the most when I saw the show just a few weeks ago. I was seated around a lot of younger patrons who I had the sense had not ever seen the show before. And they were, really reacting and engaged and leaning in and actually going at some of the more suspenseful moments. And I was just thinking, like, again, this kind of goes to just how it's constructed, but I think it is, it's almost like, strapping in for a ride that is going to take you from one emotion to the next. And I honestly was just so remembering again, seeing it through the eyes of people who haven't experienced it before, thinking about the moments of suspense and tension and release, and just the way that the story just takes you on this journey. And of course, and for me, it leaves me in like an emotional mess, like every time at the end. That's part of the reason I go back again and again, is to sort of have that emotional experience every time. And yeah, and for me, that's just a huge piece of it. But again, just looking at those the moments of, I guess, suspense in this show that actually does have, it's good for this time of year, this fall season. It has some of those those vibes,
darker moments. Yes,
exactly. So anyway, that I can talk about this forever and ever, but I won't. I want to hear your thoughts, Arri.
Well, I mean, as per usual, there's like crossover with the things that you're saying as to why I love it, and why I think even if people can't put voice to it or articulate it, that there are reasons why so many people love it, because it has to work, or it wouldn't have run for 35 years. You know what I mean? And like there's nothing wrong with like populism. Like, it's not a dirty word to me. I'm like, if a lot of people can really engage with and enjoy and glean some emotional response or pleasure or humor or whatever from the work, then like great. But I would say, like, it kind of goes with what you were saying about all the elements working together. But I think as a result of the fact that this is a musical about life in an opera house and opera singers, right? That there are two similar and related forms, but that express differently, generally. But like, it's the marriage of those things together that creates all of this, because musical theater is about economy, like getting as much information out as you can quickly, clearly, right? And it's really minimalist in a sense for it to work. It's like just the essentials. But opera is super maximalist. Like it is huge, especially like romantic opera, that this is like, and like classical opera that this is like based on this in the 1800s. And it's like, there would have been an actual elephant on stage in an opera, right? It's like if you're doing Aida or something similar, right? This Hannibal. And so it's like how those things happen. And what's brilliant is that the show is essentially, like, the way it was directed is, it's like it's in a black box and it's only essentials. Those essentials are like huge, right? The detailing on every single costume, the beadings and embroidery. I mean, you can look at it under a magnifying glass and it's stunning, and you can see it when you're in the balcony, right? And that's like everything about that. But that's it. Like, Christine's wearing this morning like black coat, and she's doing wishing, right? And it's just like with the cape and the things, and it's like, that's, I mean, but then like, oh, there's just like a fence and a tombstone. It's like it's actually not that much. Now it's huge, but it's like, where the corps de ballet is practicing, and they're like just lit enough to suggest the studio behind them, and there's a bar, and that's it. And like the beginning, are you kidding me? Like, it's really just a million curtains flying around. That's it. And it's like, wow, like, what's happening? Like, it's unbelievable. So it's like taking these huge ideas and then just suggesting them enough to let your imagination fill in the gaps, which I think also gives every audience member a way in for themselves, because they're not being given too much information, but it registers as grand. And I just think that's like absolutely magical. And then like when it comes to the score, I think it like follows that as well, because taking from the idea of like leitmotif, there's not actually a ton of musical information. I've heard criticisms over the years that like, oh, it's the same 4 songs over and over, and I'm like, have you been to an opera? Okay, but it's amazing because it's not just it's not the same 4 songs. It's the music of these characters and of the situations they're in, of the love theme, of the terror, right? It's like a whole tone world against like a diatonic world, and like trying to mesh those things together. And it's like, so there are these cells and that tie it all together and make it feel like this huge, expansive, cohesive thing, which it is, but it's just little building blocks. There are these little minimalist cells, and I just think that's brilliant. But somehow it doesn't feel paint by number. It's sweeping romance and Andrew Lloyd Webber melodies that are some of the most pleasurable things to sing in the entire world. I'm speaking in IMHO, you know, but like for me that's huge. And I think all of that is just it's like it's a living kinetic sculpture. Like every piece, like whirring and clicking and singing and dinging just in the right way, that it's as delightful every time as a music box that is beautiful and ornate, and like you can wind it up and get pleasure from it over and over and over and over again because it's just constructed perfectly. And to that end, though I'm with you that I don't think that we're seeing the last of it, I do think that with except for exceptional circumstances like a symphony concert or an anniversary production or whatever, it has the largest orchestra on Broadway and has pretty much had consistently the largest orchestra on Broadway forever. It was originally 29, it's now 27. And I know for the reopening in London, they reorchestrated it. I think it's down to 14. And you can do things with computers and synthesizers and beef up the sound, but I have sat in the pit. I know you have too. During the show, I sat next to the key one player, and to sit in an orchestra with 27 people that are playing at the absolute highest level of playing and with such stunningly well done orchestration, like it actually, that still, of every experience I've had with Phantom, just because I'd listened to it forever, for my whole life I'd been listening to it and loving that full orchestration, and like it's probably like the most emotionally like destroyed I've been like with that show, just because you feel it in your body. And like when you're in the house, like there's nothing like the sound of 27 people blending into the air as one sound. And like we don't get that very often on Broadway anymore. And it's been the show with the orchestra and also the show with that kind of singing, right? There's not a lot of that kind of singing that gets written for anymore. And you have things come and go. You have your little night musics and your Light in the Piazzas and your Gentleman's Guides, and they last a brief time. But when Phantom goes, like there'll be a hole for that kind of lush, romantic, classically influenced thing on Broadway. So those are my reasons.
Oh, I love your reasons. I will think about that music box metaphor for a long time. I love that you said that way. And I'm glad you brought up sitting in the pit and the full orchestra and the whole tone scale and all that stuff. No, no, it's so good. I could and I do listen to it all the time. So it's, there's so much richness there. We have a special treat here that Arri sent me some files, but I haven't watched any of them yet. It's going to be, I don't know exactly what's in them, but they're Phantom related. I know that. So will you just tell me what's in these special videos that you sent over?
Yes, in fact. So the concert tour I'm on is called No More Talk of Darkness, or Jeremy Stolle's No More Talk of Darkness. And so we do a lot of things, like I said, but then towards the end of second act, you save everything. And we have a Phantom set where I do All I Ask of You with Elizabeth, which is I'm so lucky. I get to sing with Christine. It's awesome. And then she does Wishing You Were Somewhere Here Again. And Jeremy does Music of the Night, of course. So I have a couple of sound check clips and then a performance clip.
That's all I ask of you.
that was wonderful. I loved it. You all sound wonderful. Thanks to you and Jeremy Stolle and Elizabeth Welch for allowing us to show those clips. That is such also a cool peek for me into your life for the last few weeks, and I guess your process in putting these shows together and the sound check and performance and all of that, picking up and sitting down in all these cities and everything and what it all looks like. So that's really, really
it's different everywhere. We're not we don't have roadies with us or like a thing. I mean, it's just the three of us, and the show exists in different forms, and there's like the arena large one, which if you remember from a Third Thursday last summer, we showed a clip of Side by Side from that version of the show, which is a full band and tracks and lots of singers and instruments up front and LED screens. And actually 85% of this show is the same songs, but we do them way more acoustically. So it's just Jeremy on guitar, me on piano, the three of us singing, and Elizabeth plays like tambourine and egg shaker. And I stomp the floor with my cowboy boots when we're doing Oklahoma, and so it's different. And here it's really cool because we're bringing these things to communities that are too far away from major cities to go there for entertainment. Who it's getting to a Phantom tour would mean driving several hours or something, and so we come in and there's such support for these series and the artists, and they're so hospitable and they take such good care of us. And sometimes we're at a high school auditorium and the lights and sound are being run by students in the theater program. And so, it like may not be ideal, or it may make sound check take longer, but they're also learning from it. And, we get to bring Broadway to them, and it's just, it's been really, really great. If not really exhausting. I'm not young anymore. I'm just like, ooh.
Well, you're almost at the end of this tour too, right?
We are. We have 3 shows left. We fly back on Saturday, so just a couple more days, But.
Well, I hope I get a chance to see that version of the show again another time. I've seen wonderful versions at Birdland and at 54 Below here in the city, and I hope I get to see you on the road sometime. Next tour, next time. But you three singing together, I think, is a real treasure. So I'm glad I got the chance to see that.
And thank you all for spending a little time with us. I know this is a little longer than some of the ones that we do, but like you said, we could have kept you here for 3 days. So, so that thank you though, just for spending time with our nerdiness and just absolute undying love for a show that for me, I can speak personally, but I think for both of us too, is just, we would be different writers and also just like different people generally in the world without Phantom having been such a huge part of our love of this thing that we do.
I couldn't have said it better. Co-sign that. And with that sentiment, we'll say goodbye for now. See you next month.
See you next month.
You are